I thought the sounds in my wall were mice until I found their journal. I bought the house because it was supposed to be quiet. It's not quiet anymore. It's a small place, a fixer-upper on a street where all the trees are older than the houses. I got it for a steal, which should have been the first red flag. But I'm good with my hands, and the idea of stripping a place down to its bones and building it back up my way, it felt right. A clean start. The first week was sweat and sawdust. I tore up the piss-stained carpet in the living room, slapped a coat of paint on walls that looked like they'd been chain smoking for 40 years. I'd work my 9 to 5, come home, and work another 6. By the time I fell into bed, my muscles screamed and the world would just switch off. Except it didn't. Every night, just as the house settled and the last of the day's heat bled from the walls, I'd hear it. A sound from inside the wall behind my headboard. It wasn't a scratching, not like mice. It was a dry, papery rustle, like a handful of dead leaves skittering across concrete. Rats, I figured. The place was old, neglected. Of course, it had squatters. I didn't have the cash for an exterminator, not after the down payment and the materials. So I did what any guy running on fumes and a tight budget would do. I ignored it. I told myself I'd deal with it later. The rustling was my new lullaby. Work, renovate, sleep, rustle, repeat. Then, about a week ago, it stopped. One night I was lying there, waiting for the sound, and all I got was silence. A deep, heavy quiet that felt louder than the noise it replaced. I held my breath, my ears strained, searching for that familiar, papery whisper. Nothing. I actually smiled in the dark. Maybe they'd moved on. Maybe the constant noise of my saws and hammers had finally evicted them. For the first time in a month, I felt my shoulders unclench. I was just sliding into sleep when the rustling started again. Not from my bedroom wall, from the guest room across the hall. The sound hadn't just stopped. It had moved. I took the next day off. Told my boss I had a plumbing emergency. The lie tasted metallic in my mouth, but I didn't care. The house was screaming for attention. The guest room was last on my list, a junk room full of tools and drywall sheets. Now it was priority number 1. I called my buddy Zev while I ate a sandwich standing over the kitchen sink. Zev knows his way around old houses. Dude, the place is actually starting to look like somewhere a human could live, I told him. Told you. Just gotta bleed for it a little. How's the bank account? Don't ask. Hey, quick one for you. You ever deal with rats that sound like, I don't know, like they're shuffling papers around in the walls? Zev was quiet for a second. That's not rats, man. That's a poltergeist with a filing addiction. Hilarious. Maybe it can do my taxes. Seriously though, that's weird. Probably just a weird draft through some old insulation. Tear the wall down. You were gonna do it anyway. He was right. I finished my sandwich and went to the guest room. The wallpaper was this god-awful floral pattern, yellowed and peeling. It smelled like dust and forgotten time. I spent hours scraping that shit off, my arms burning. The last section was inside the closet. As I pulled a huge strip of paper away from the wall, the plaster and lath behind it crumbled, revealing a dark square of nothing. It was a crawl space, neatly boarded up and hidden behind the wall. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through decades of darkness and dust motes danced like tiny frantic ghosts. And I saw the source of the rustling. Droppings, piles of them. But there was something else. In the far corner, a filthy nest of pillows and a stained, thin blanket. Someone had lived in here, or hidden, and next to the nest was a book, a cheap, spiral-bound notebook. I hesitated. This felt wrong, like reading a stranger's mail, but the pull was too strong. I reached in, my fingers brushing against the cold plaster, and picked it up. The cover was blank. The pages were brittle, the edges browned with age. The first entry was written in a tight, spidery script. Entry 1. They're so loud, I hear their heavy feet on my ceiling. They don't know I'm down here. I am the quiet in their house. I flipped a few pages. Entry 5. He was shouting today. At her. The vibrations came through the floor. I put the pillow over my head. I don't like the shouting. Entry 12. They left this morning. The car sound got smaller and smaller until it was gone. Now it's just me and the house's breathing. I can go upstairs when they're gone. I like to touch their things. That last line sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the draft from the crawl space. I snapped the book shut. This was beyond creepy. This was a record of someone's secret, parasitic life. I had to put it down. I had to board this hole back up and pretend I never saw it. But I didn't. I set the journal on a paint can and called Zev back. "You're not going to believe this," I said, my voice low. "Don't tell me you found Jimmy Hoffa." Close. I found a crawl space in the guest room closet. And a squatter's nest. And a diary. No fucking way. Yeah, listen to this. I can go upstairs when they're gone. I like to touch their things. I tried to make my voice sound spooky, like it was a joke. It didn't feel like a joke. Zev whistled. "Bro, you bought a house from a horror movie. You gotta read that shit at a party. That's premium scary story material. Maybe. Or maybe I should just burn it." "Nah, don't you dare. That's history. Bad, creepy history, but history." We hung up, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I kept looking at that black square in the wall. The journal sat there looking like a mundane object. But it felt heavy. It felt like it was watching me. A few weeks later, the house was mostly done. It was mine. The floors were new, the walls were clean. The silence was back to being just silence. To celebrate, I had a few friends over. Zev, a couple guys from work. Nothing major, just beer and pizza on cardboard boxes because I still didn't have a table. We were a few beers in, laughing about some stupid shit when Zev remembered. "Hey, Iago, go get the creepy diary. Tell the guys about your ghost roommate." Everyone cheered. It felt stupid, but I was a little drunk and it seemed funny. I went and got the notebook. I sat down on the new floorboards and cleared my throat, playing it up. "All right, settle in, children." I flipped to a random page. Entry 47. The shouting people are gone. The house was empty for a long time. It was so quiet. I was getting lonely. But now there's a new man. My thumb froze on the page. A new man. My thumb froze on the page. "Keep going, man. What's he say?" Someone slurred from the corner. I swallowed. My throat felt dry. I read the next line. "He's been making so much noise. Tearing at my skin. Peeling back my walls. He doesn't know this is a body, not a house. My body." The room was silent. Zev wasn't laughing anymore. He was just staring at me. "Dude," he said, his voice sober. That's fucked up." I tried to laugh it off. Jesus, this person was seriously disturbed. I flipped toward the back, looking for an end. I found the last entry. The handwriting was different. Messier. Angry. Entry 92. "He found my place. He looked inside. He read my words. He knows I'm here. He keeps touching MY things, fixing MY walls. He's painting over the memories. This is MY house. He needs to go. He needs to go now." I snapped the book shut. Okay, that's enough of that. The party died down after that. The vibe was ruined. When the last person left, the silence that flooded the house was suffocating. I locked the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It's a story. It's just some crazy person's story from years ago. A coincidence. But I couldn't shake it. I walked down the hall to the guest room. I'd patched the hole in the closet, mudded and taped it. It was like it was never there. But I knew better. I spent the next hour cleaning up, the whole time feeling like 1,000 eyes were on me. Every creak of the floorboards was a footstep. Every groan of the pipes was a whisper. By the time I got into bed, my nerves were shot. Sleep wasn't coming easy. I must have drifted off, because I was pulled back by a sound. A soft thump. It came from the guest room. I sat bolt upright in bed, listening. The house was dead quiet. My own breathing sounded like a hurricane. Maybe I dreamed it. Thump. There it was again. From the closet. From the wall I'd just fixed. This wasn't a rustle. This was solid. It sounded like someone knocking from the inside. My blood turned to ice. Every rational thought evaporated. I slid out of bed, grabbing the heaviest thing I could find, a steel flashlight from my nightstand. I crept out of my room. The hallway was a tunnel of darkness. The guest room door was ajar. I know I closed it. I know I did. I pushed the door open. The room was black, save for the sliver of moonlight coming through the window. It smelled like fresh paint and something else, something old and stale. I moved toward the closet. My hand was shaking so bad I could barely hold the flashlight steady. Another thump, louder this time, right against the closet door. And then silence. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. Then, slowly, silently, the closet door handle began to turn. It opened with a soft click, and from the darkness inside, something unfolded. It wasn't a man. It was a shape, impossibly thin, dressed in rags. A pale skeletal hand with dirt caked under the nails gripped the doorframe. Then a face peered out. It was waxy and gaunt, with eyes that were just black pits. Eyes that had not seen the sun in a very, very long time. It didn't scream. It didn't lunge. It just took a silent step toward me. I didn't even have time to yell. I just reacted. I threw the heavy flashlight and it hit the thing in the chest with a dull thud. It barely flinched. It just kept coming. I stumbled backward, tripping over a toolbox I'd left on the floor. I scrambled away, crab walking across the new floorboards, my mind just a loop of pure animal terror. The thing was between me and the door. The only way out was the window. I surged to my feet, grabbed a loose floor lamp, and hurled it. The thing raised a bony arm to block it, and in that split second, I lunged for the window. I didn't try to open it. I put my shoulder down and just crashed through. The sound of shattering glass was deafening. Pain exploded across my shoulder and arm as the shards tore at my skin. I tumbled out onto the wet grass of my front lawn, the night air a shocking cold slap. I didn't stop. I scrambled up, bleeding, gasping, and I ran. I just ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted to my neighbor's house and hammered on their door until the lights came on, screaming my fucking head off the whole time. The cops came. They found my story hard to believe. They swept the house. They found the crawl space, of course. The patch was torn open from the inside. The nest of filthy blankets was there. But the journal was gone, and so was whoever or whatever had come out of my wall. They found no one, no fingerprints that weren't mine, nothing. Just a terrified man bleeding on his neighbor's porch and a broken window. They looked at me like I was on drugs or had a psychotic break. I never spent another night in that house. I walked away from it all. The money, the work, everything. The bank took it back. I heard from the realtor a couple months ago. She said the house sold again. A young couple, she said. They got it for a steal. She said they were so excited to fix it up and make it their own. I didn't say anything. I just hung up the phone. I hope for their sake they're heavy sleepers. I hope they don't mind the quiet. Because in that house, the quiet doesn't last. The quiet is just a pause while the house holds its breath, waiting to see what you'll do, waiting to see if you'll touch its things.